Hello, we are on YouTube.
Woohoo!
Fantastic. Welcome to anyone who might be here watching already. Usually it takes people a couple minutes to filter in. So we'll wait a minute or two for people to go ahead and join us. Um, but welcome. Yep, we have 3 watching as of right now. Wonderful. I will actually go ahead and start with our intro because it's a little bit lengthy. So hopefully that'll give people time to join us. And by the time most people are here, we will have started with the actual questions. So I'm going to make sure that people can see both me and our lovely guest. Alrighty, so officially, welcome to the WPAMA. This is a weekly series hosted by me, Ali Nimmons. I'm your host. In case you don't know, we round up your questions on a specific topic every single week, and then we sit down with a really cool person to answer them together live. So if you're just tuning in and you have questions that you weren't able to submit ahead of time, please leave them in the chat here in the YouTube window, and if we'll have time, we'll go ahead and grab those and answer those as well. We do a random giveaway at the end of every episode. This week, we're giving away one free item out of the WP Buffs store. So make sure you stay to the end and see if you might be chosen. Only people who have signed up via email can win. So go to wpbuffs.com/WP-AMA-series and register there, and you might win a prize in the future. This episode will be available to watch here on YouTube. If you miss any portion, if you need captions, fun things like that, all that's going to be included in its entirety within the next 24 hours. So, enough from me. This week we are answering questions about technical support with my friend, Ben Meredith. Hi, Ben. Welcome.
Well, hello. Thank you for having
Hi.
me.
Thank you for being here. For anyone who just absolutely lives under a rock and doesn't know who you are, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
My name is Ben Meredith. I'm the head of support at GiveWP, which is a donation platform for WordPress. It's a plugin. And so I live in South Carolina, just moved here right at the beginning of the pandemic. And I work with an all remote team of technical support specialists. So, yeah, I'm a husband of one, a dad of 3, and
Important
we're loving
distinction.
living out in the country.
Fantastic. I'm very jealous. I live in a very metropolitan area and don't get to go out and be in the country very much. So I'm jealous. One day I'll come visit
You
you.
can come visit.
Yes. Awesome. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and dive into the questions. Again, if you have any questions for Ben about providing technical support, which is what he knows a ton about, go ahead and leave those questions in the chat and we'll grab them throughout the next 45 to 60 minutes. All right. So the first question that we had in I already kind of know the answer to this because backstory for those of you watching, I actually used to work with Ben at GiveWP. He taught me basically all I know about tech support. So um, I might know some of the answers to these, which is going to be a first. But the first question is, what kind of books and/or blog posts do you suggest that other support technicians read?
What kind of books and or blog posts do you suggest? Well, we have this is very self-serving, but we have a guide, a support manual that we wrote, which really is our playbook. It's designed to tell you exactly how we do support. And so
Right.
that's the number one thing. But honestly, I really think that the best way to learn how to do technical support is really to study the humanities and stuff. Like I have a degree in religion. I don't have a degree in computer science. And I think that my degree there gave me just as much insight into how to do technical support as the technical know-how. Obviously, it's
Mhm.
important to know how to do technical stuff. It's important to know the product that you support. For example, in my case, it's GiveWP. If I don't know technically how GiveWP works, I'm never going to be able to do support.
Mhm.
But just knowing the technical stuff isn't enough. And in fact, can do you a disservice because I think that the best technical support people are people who understand people and understand how people work. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a bajillion books I could recommend there, but just general business books and blogs and things like that. John Acuff is an author that I've read literally everything he's ever written. And uh, I really like his approach to business related topics, because it helps you to um, it humanizes business and the people on the other end of the, in my case, email. But if you're doing chat or phone support or whatever, it's people that are on the other end of the conversation. And so learning how to deal with those people. But yeah, for the X's and O's and the nuts and bolts of how we specifically do support at GiveWP, our support manual is my number one recommendation. And it's public, open source. You can take it, copy it, make it your own. It's even on GitHub in Markdown, so like you can literally take it and fork it and make it your own to use in your organizations. I don't know if that answered the question, but that's off the top.
So maybe I definitely kind of want you to mention the book that we read together when I was at Give.
Oh yes, I forgot about that one. So QBQ is a great book. It's by John Miller, John G. Miller, and it's a book called QBQ. And the question behind the question is a book. And so we have, and for every job I've ever had, even when I was in vocational college ministry, everybody that I worked with, we would go through this book, either one-on-one or in a small group, just to kind of discuss how to accept personal responsibility for other people, or for yourself, and for your job, and what it is that you have to do. And so I really like it. Allie helped me to realize some ways where I wasn't seeing, it's written by a white guy. I'm a white guy. There were some blind spots there that I recognized as we read through it. There's a bee flying in here, and if I go a little crazy, that's what's going on. So
you are outside by a river, so I would assume some wildlife.
That's right. This is Lake Greenwood, scenic Lake Greenwood.
Gorgeous.
But no, it's QBQ. I really like, because I think at the end of the day, when it comes to customer service interactions, this customer service or technical support, being able to stop blame shifting and passing the buck to someone else. In my case, in our job, it's very tempting to be like, no, it's the theme's fault, right? Like we're a plugin, we don't handle that. That's your theme. Your theme is doing something wrong. Go talk to them, to pass the buck and to say, go over there. It's not my problem. And QBQ really helped me and continues to help me to instead ask a better question. What can I do? Instead of saying, why don't theme authors fix their dang theme so that I can, my customers will be happy? That's a question that shifts the blame. Instead, asking the question, how can I solve this problem? And so we do go over and above and beyond to resolve theme issues, to resolve plugin conflicts. If I send a customer to a theme shop, I send them with like a script. Like on line 47 of this file, there's a function that you're calling that's messing with GiveWP. Please, fix it. I give them exactly what to say to solve the problem, because at the end of the day, I'm the one. It's my product that is looking bad here, even though it's not really my product's fault. To send them with clear instructions to the other team is what I can do to solve the problem, and that I really got from the QBQ book. So thank you for the prompt. I had forgotten that we read that book.
Absolutely. And I did appreciate that book for what it was. There were bits of it I disagreed with, but I think as a whole, the concept was a really good one to learn, and to as I'm answering tickets, to think about, am I keeping the lessons that I've learned from this book in mind, and that sort of thing. So yeah, as much as we kind of had our back and forth about it, I did find it really valuable.
Yes.
Yeah. Alrighty, next question. What are your feelings about live chat for tech support? So just for background, at GiveWP, unless things have changed in the past year or so, we don't do live chat. It's all via email / a desk of some kind. So what do you feel about live chat for tech support in lieu of those sorts of things?
Yeah, specifically for tech support, we have often it just beyond the most basic stuff, like the most basic problems that everyone, just kind of we call it low hanging fruit. When we're looking through the inbox, a Help Scout inbox to answer support tickets, like if it's an answer I don't even have to look up, I call that low hanging fruit, or we call that low hanging fruit. And so, like, I don't even have to look it up. I can just say, oh, well, the problem is you haven't done this, and click here to do this and figure out how to do that. And there's more documentation here if you're interested, and just send. Like those kind of tickets could maybe be served by chat-based support. In my experience, it very quickly becomes a frustrating experience for both me as a technical support technician and the customer or user if it goes anywhere beyond that, because it's like, and unless you've got a large enough team where you can just devote 30-45 minutes to every problem that comes through on chat support, it's going to very quickly not scale, right? It's very quickly you're going to be, well, you need to go submit a support ticket over here anyways. And so that's what we would end up doing. The couple of times we've dabbled with chat support, we've never dabbled with chat support for technical support on my team, but our customer success team, which handles a lot more of the account related issues, they do demos, they do some pre-sales stuff, things like that. They were doing chat support for a while, but it very quickly ended up being people that needed technical support were reaching out, despite us saying chat's not the best way to get us for technical issues. And so right now, as of today, we don't use chat support right now, but that's a little bit of a scale issue. I think if we had, with unlimited resources, I want to help users as quickly as possible. That's my thing. We want to resolve issues quickly. And right now, with the size of our team, the best way to do that is ticket-based, email-based support, because it gives me the ability to troubleshoot not in real time, because there's a lot of ways this thing can break, right? Because of the way WordPress is, the thousands of themes and tens of thousands, or maybe even hundreds of thousands of plugins out there between free and premium plugins. Like there's just so many different ways it can break. And so it's a painful experience for you to watch me live debug, like let's screen share and watch Ben yell at the computer. Like it's not gonna, it does, you don't want, nobody wants that. And so chat is a one step removed from that, where it's great for those issues that I already know, they're doing it wrong, and that, I can tell them how to do it right and just send them on their way. That's awesome. But I'd say if I had to pick a percentage, that's like 10% at most of the tickets that we receive are true low-hanging fruit, where I could just do it. And what's low-hanging fruit for me is not what's low-hanging fruit for everybody else on the team. When you first started a company, any company, no matter how savvy you are, there's blind spots and there's things that you don't know about the product. And so you're not going to be able to just hop in and know the answer. I've been with this company for 5 years now, and so I can, coming up on 5 years, I've rounded the corner towards 5. But I can clear a whole bunch of low-hanging fruit from the inbox all at once, just because I've seen this question before. And so that's the other thing, is you'd have to have very highly trained technicians on chat. And so that's more expensive. The technicians with more experience are going to cost more to the company. And so I want them doing the thing that is the most valuable for our users and for our product. And for us, that's not chat, at least not right now.
For sure. Makes sense. You did touch a little bit on getting, basically, like the aim being to get the problem solved as quickly as possible, which leads into another question that we have, which is about your opinions on first response time. So like, how quickly should somebody get a response versus, taking the time to solve the problem and then responding to them?
Yeah, I want my first, there's two tensions here. On the one side, I want my first response to be a good one, right? I want it to be, here's how you fix the problem, or I was able to replicate the problem and I've escalated it to the development team and here's a fix in the meantime, for a workaround or what. Like, I want it to be an answer, not just a response. And so that's on the one side, and then on the other side is I don't want it to be 5 days, right? Like, you've got to get back to people faster than that. Before I started working at GiveWP, I have a couple of free products, plugins on the WordPress repo, and my internal like measure was I measured in hours on how long to get back to people. Once you start measuring in days, I think that's too long. And so, but I also recognize that it's, these people, especially for free plugins, they weren't even paying me, right? And so I was just using it as a resume to get a job. Spoiler alert, it worked. But I think it's completely reasonable for a free product for there to be a multiple day turnaround on a support request, whether that's on WordPress.org support forums or elsewhere via email, whatever. I think that's totally reasonable. But I also think that just from my experience as a customer, anytime I've paid for something, I think one business day is like the minimum, like or maximum, I should say. That's the longest I should have to wait to hear back from something. Now we at GiveWP take that far further. In the, we guarantee or we advertise a 2 to 4 business hour response time, first response time. First is important. Not every response. We want to answer it on the first response if we can. But that first response is so important. And there's nothing worse than, we've all been there. You fill out a detailed support ticket that you feel like and you say, man, this is urgent. I really need your help with this. My website is down. Can you get back to me soon? And then you sit and stare at your inbox like, okay, is it coming? Is it coming? I don't see it yet. And so we want to avoid that as much as possible. And so 2 to 4 business hours is, I think, really weird, but it's also what we consistently do with GiveWP. And so when people reach out to our priority support, they're going to hear back in 2 to 4 business hours. And oftentimes much quicker than that, depending on, the support load and how things are going with the team. But I think that's a perfectly, I think that's going over and above. I think 1 business day is probably industry standard, for better or for worse. I think that the worst, and, to sort of dovetail off my initial point, the worst thing you can do is to say, basically, hey, we got this ticket. We'll be back with you soon. Other than an auto reply, like an auto reply is fine. But if they hear back in 5 hours or 6 hours, thanks so much. We've got a technician looking into this and we'll let you know. I personally, and we as a, organization, I don't love that. I would much rather them take an additional 45 minutes and respond with a real answer, move me toward resolution. Even if that answer is, or even if that first response is, hey, we didn't get to this, I'm leaving for the day. Here's 2 things I want you to try between now and tomorrow morning when I check back in on this to see if this fixes it. Try this and this. Sorry we weren't able to get to this ticket today. I'll check back first thing tomorrow morning or first thing Monday morning, whatever. The point is, I always want to be moving toward resolution with every response. And I want not only for me to feel like I'm moving toward resolution, I want for the customer or the user to feel like I'm moving them toward resolution. They know more about the problem or the solution or just my product in general by my first response. And so, yeah.
Nice. Good answer. This next question is probably my favorite. How do you handle angry customers?
I love them. I am wired exactly backwards. And really, in a lot of jobs I've had in the past, I used to work retail, uh, selling cell phones, and retail cell phone world is, you get some angry people. And so that, and in that world, it's always like they've been on the phone with customer support for mega tele corporation for 3 hours, and they've gotten bounced around to offshore support 5 times, and then their call got dropped, and then they called back and it's going to be 2 more hours. So they just said, I'm going to the store. And here in the South, when people go to the store, they just get all riled up. They're in their pickup truck and they show up. But no, like every single time we called them bill waivers. They would come into the store, and I've got a piece of paper here, and they'd be waving their paper bill above their head. And so people, all of my coworkers would just kind of scatter. They're like, here comes a bill waiver, and they would scatter. And I think I'm wired backwards. I loved it. I'm like, if this person who's so angry with my company right now, if I can make their day right now, they're going to spend $800 in my store. Like, watch this. I'm going to make this person love me. And so by the time I stopped working there, I was only there for 10 or 11 months. But by the time I stopped working there, I had people who would call the store and say, is Ben there? And whoever answered would say yes or no or whatever. And people would come up and wait in line to deal with me, even though there were other reps that were available, because they wanted to deal with me because I had solved their problem 2 years, 3 months, whatever, before. And they were just like, wow. Actually, I was there for a year and a half. Yeah. Sorry, it was 10 months at Starbucks and then a year and a half at Mega Telecorp. And so, but I loved it. And the reason is because, I think an angry customer is somebody who is committed. You can't be angry at a product that you don't care about, right?
Yeah.
And so in the WordPress space now, I'm not dealing with, I'm at a startup essentially, compared in size to the company that I was working for, retail. It's way different because, there's no way they've been waiting on hold with our customer support because we don't have phone support. And so, but when they show up to me and they're angry, what I interpret that anger, first of all, as commitment, because there's a whole lot for every one angry person. There's probably, especially when you're dealing with the free plugin, there's probably 10 people who got mad and left, and didn't come and tell me how mad they were. And so now once people have paid for it, angry customers is probably more one-to-one. Every angry customer who has paid for it shows up angry. When they're angry, they show up. But I really do view it as they're showing that they care enough about this product to use it and to get angry when it doesn't do what they want it to do. And so that's the first step, is to kind of use that empathy muscle to say, oh, what sounds a lot like them bashing me is actually them just being frustrated with, they're above their depth in terms of technical ability, and they don't know how to do it, and they're lashing out at me because I'm here and they paid me $300. And so it's time to lash out. And so those people, when you can make them happy, just like the people in the store spent $800 on cell phones and accessories that day, oftentimes those angriest people can become your brand ambassadors. They can become your people that will give you the 5-star review on WordPress.org and the great rating on Google and the Facebook review, and they're signing up to be an affiliate because they want people to hear about how great they were treated. And so so that's it. Now, obviously, as a caveat, we don't let people abuse us. If my first response to somebody who is being aggressive, it doesn't diffuse the situation, and if they continue to berate me or my team, that's not going to fly. I'm not, I don't I don't like that. I do like angry people that can be made happy, but honestly, there's only been a handful of people in my whole time with the company that have been angry enough to, or have been abusive, or have been where my soft answer has not, you know, changed their tune. And a lot of people have come back. I think it might be because we deal with nonprofits, and so I, it's a bit of a stereotype, but I've seen it play out that people that work for nonprofits are generally nicer people than the population at large. And so we do have lots of great customers that when they are super frustrated, you know, their fundraiser's not working, they lash out at me, but then I fix the problem and they come back and go, man, I just want to apologize. Like, thank you so much for fixing that. Like, I was super angry because my boss was yelling at me and I shouldn't have done that. And some people don't apologize. Lots of our customers do. And so, but yeah, I love making those angry customers into happy customers, because that, you know, that's the customer that's going to happily buy the next thing you put out, or happily tell a friend about you or about your company. So yeah, that's how I deal with angry folk.
Absolutely. And yeah, I definitely remember when I started at Give, however long ago it was, being concerned of like, oh, I'm going to be doing tech support, so this means people are going to be mean to me. Like that was kind of something I went into, kind of like thinking, okay, I have to have tougher skin because I'm probably going to get some angry people. And I didn't get very many. I was always a little bit surprised at how few times I had to go to you or another supervisor and sort of be like, someone's yelling at me. Like it did not happen as frequently as you think. So I would say to whoever has that as a question or a concern, yeah, it'll probably happen less frequently than you think. And when it does happen, the thing you said about empathy, 100%, I agree. It really helped me to learn how to just put my, and remember that I've been an angry customer before, and how easy it is to get upset with like a faceless representative, you know, and to put that frustration on them. So yeah, the empathy thing is huge. There's something else I was going to say as a follow up to that. I don't remember what it is, so we're going to move on to the next question.
Perfect.
Do you need to be a developer to provide technical support? Or
Yes.
maybe to what degree do you need to be a developer to provide technical support?
Yes, you have to be the best developer in the world. That's what I've found. And in my experience, I am the best developer in the world. So that solves it. No, that actually is, I tell people all the time that, yes, you need some development ability. Or I don't even know. I don't even like that answer. I don't think you need development ability. You need to understand code on some level to do technical support for a code-based project, right? But I think that the best technical support technicians are the ones who, like I said earlier, understand people more than the code. And so one of the things in our support manual says that we see ourselves as ambassadors to and from customers. So we're in between developer and customer, advocating in both directions. Like, this is a customer is having this issue, I have to take it and communicate it to a developer in such a way that it makes him or her understand that that is an issue that is worth putting on GitHub and solving, right? And then it goes the other way too. When the developers come back with we're not going to fix this, and here's the 7 reasons why, I then have to put on my customer ambassador hat and go over there to the customer and say, you know, here's the reasons why we're not going to do this, and say it in a way that the customer doesn't get angry. And that is an art form. That is not a science. that is it's something that you have to learn over time, and it's something that that, you know, I still mess up in both directions, that ambassador role. But I think that it's absolutely a different skill set than using React, make a front end for XYZ that does, you know, like that. I don't have that skill set. You know, I can read some code. And so I think that if I had to give it a percentage, it's like 70% people knowledge, and how to deal with people and how to diffuse situations and how to clearly communicate complicated realities. And then it's 30% understanding those complicated realities.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, like, I don't think I could do my job if I didn't understand the tech. I don't want people to hear that. Like, yeah, go out and apply for a tech support job, not knowing any tech or desiring to know any tech.
Yeah.
But I can, if somebody wants to learn it, I can teach you how to read PHP. Note I didn't say write. I said read. How to read PHP faster than I can teach you some of these empathy skills. But those can also be taught too. But I'd say that if I had to choose between the two, obviously I'm always going to want somebody who understands code or wants to. But I'd much rather have somebody who understands how to communicate and is good at communicating and is proactive at communicating and anticipating what people are thinking, and why somebody is upset. If you can understand why somebody's mad at you or mad at your product, and then communicate on their level back to them, that's a way more valuable skill set in technical support than just the technical knowledge. So they're different, they're complementary roles. But I used to say when people said, what's your career trajectory? Before I got into tech support, I wanted to be a developer. And the more I learned development, the more I learned, I don't know if I want to be a developer. I like solving people's problems.
Yeah.
And I like the code part of it, but I don't like making the code. I like fixing the code. And even then, I don't, nowadays, my job, I don't spend much time actually doing the code fixes. I'll write a custom snippet here and there to fix stuff, but for the most part, I spend my time massaging how to communicate that in the right way to this person and vice versa, because that, I think, is a lot more valuable use of my time than to write the code. Because if you want me to write you a code snippet, sure, I can do it. It'll take 3 hours and it'll be subpar. Or we can have one of these developers over here who spends all of their time writing these types of code snippets, spend 10 minutes and it'll be excellent. So I don't want to waste your time. I want to solve your problem. And so the best way for me to solve your problem is to delegate the code stuff. But I still want people who at least desire to understand how things fit together.
Right. I totally agree. And I mean, that was the case with me, right? When I joined the team, I'm not and have never been a developer. I understand code on a very basic level. What I understood was WordPress, and I understood how WordPress worked on a, I'd say, beginner to intermediate level.
Right.
And so then it was just building knowledge on top of that of like, okay, I know how a plugin works, but I don't really know how a hook works. Maybe I should learn, maybe I should learn that. And like, I think if you're a good learner, if you're a good learner and you have good communication skills, I think the rest can come. Do you agree?
And if you want to learn it, like it's the worst when you get into a role where it's like you thought it would be one thing and it's not. And so I see a lot of people who misunderstand what technical support is to hear me saying, well, you don't need to be a coder. And then they're like, oh, well, I'm not a coder. And then they get in there and they're like, well, you're asking me to learn all this code. And I'm like, no. I'm just asking you to learn the concepts. And so it's both. You know, I don't want people to hear me saying, yeah, you don't have to be a coder, because you do have to at least want to learn enough to be able to explain as an expert how your product functions. And in our case, how GiveWP functions. Like, if you don't want to understand the code that much, it's probably not the position for you. And that's not a bad thing. It's just not where we're going toward. And so, but it definitely, it requires, like you said, being a learner and wanting to learn. Like, well, the want to has got to be there. If not, it's gonna be a really bad job. You're not gonna like it.
Yeah, agreed. All right, I lied. This is actually my favorite question, and Ben's going to know why. How much do you use documentation within your support? I hate when tech support just sends me a link to a doc and sends me on my way.
I do too. There's man, that's a great question. It's documentation is absolutely critical for any product. I remember, if those of us who are old enough to remember Steve Jobs's announcement of the iPhone, he was on stage and he's holding up an iPhone and he's like, "There is no manual," and he was so excited about this because he thought, he was wrong, by the way, but he thought he was going to make a product so intuitive that it wouldn't even need a manual. Because before that, so if, again, you're old enough to remember pre-iPhone, cell phones came with a booklet and they were big, thick, 1/2 inch by 5 inch booklet. And you had to to program the clock. You had to go to page 37 to program the clock. And so documentation has always been a thing, right? And a lot of it, and too much in some cases. And there's this belief out there among developers and visionaries like Steve Jobs that there is a possibility to create a product so good that it's not going to need any instructions. I invite you to go with me to the Apple store nearest you and check the line at the Genius Bar and see if that actually worked. Does it need somebody to explain it to you? Yes. And in fact, they're paying their documentation $17 an hour to stand there and tell people what they could have written down, right?
Yeah.
You could, and there's a whole industry on Apple training because of this diehard belief that you don't need a booklet to ship with your product. And so it's just a myth that documentation is unnecessary or that you're ever going to be able to make a product that just works for everyone. And so once you dispel of that notion, then the question becomes, how does documentation fit into support? Well, documentation fits into support that hopefully good documentation is going to lessen the number of support tickets, right?
Right.
And so that's the other myth. On the other side of the coin is people who would say, if I can document this enough, people aren't going to reach out for me for support. And so I won't have to hire support technicians because the documentation is going to be so good that I'll never have to hear another question on how to connect a Stripe webhook because it's right there. It's in the documentation. I wrote it down. And that's also a myth. And I think it's because of the way people work. We need interaction. Some people are the types that will never submit a support ticket. They're going to read the documentation, figure it out, or just give up and quit or whatever. They're not going to submit a support ticket. Other people are never going to read your documentation, no matter how well you write it, no matter if you've got videos with you pointing from the video down to the solution and the solution is blinking, they are still going to submit a support ticket if you've got a form for them to submit a support ticket. And so it's both. I want to document my solution so good that it takes those people who won't submit a support ticket and it answers their problem, solves their problem. And it takes those people who are going to submit a support ticket, even though the answer is right there on page 1A of the documentation. I want them to feel served as well. I want them to feel like I'm listening to them, and they don't want to read. Some people just don't want to read. I'm one of those people. When it comes to documentation, I don't love to read. I would much rather have a video of you doing the process or whatever, or somebody to just point at it and tell me how to do it. And so that leads to the what I really like about that question is where they said, I don't want somebody to just send me a link to the documentation and move on. And so, and I agree, I don't. That's terrible. I hate it when I get a ticket or I get a response to a ticket where they're like, it's in the documentation here. And then they send you a doc that is literally 1,500 words long, and you're like, where?
Yeah.
I read that. I obviously missed it. Could you circle it for me? And so what we do, our process is we answer the question, even if it's almost a direct copy paste paraphrase of the documentation. Answer the question in the support ticket. Then say, if you want to learn more or to dig a little bit deeper into the concept of blah, fill in the blank, here's our documentation that covers all of that, because that helps them feel heard. They didn't ask you for a link to documentation. They asked you to fix their problem. And so if somebody's going to reach out to me, I'm going to answer their question. And then the other thing that I like to do is to make a little personalized screencast of me showing them, educating them on my product. Because it's so quick. There's so many great tools out there. We use Screencast-O-Matic, but there's Loom, and there's several other free resources out there for you to create these little screencasts where you just say, here's how to do it. Hey, I saw on your website you've got this here. Just a tip, you can move this to here, and here's a CSS snippet that does that, or here's how to change that in our settings. And also, while I was in here, I saw this and just want to do that. Just give them a quick 2-3 minute video, send it to them. People love it. And also in that video, sometimes I'll be like, and one other thing, that check out our documentation on this, because I wrote this and it's really in depth on this paragraph is what you're looking for. Go read that. And people love it. People want to hear from a human a lot. And so when they reach out to me, it's never a bad thing. That's another thing. That's kind of an answer to a different question, but it's my AMA and I'll answer it right now. The other question that I get lots is, are tickets a good thing or a bad thing? They don't ever say that directly like that, because there's an underlying assumption that more tickets is bad, fewer tickets is good. Because as a support technician, when you look at a pile of 18 tickets, that feels bad. And you look at a pile of 3 tickets, that feels better. And so if we can make fewer tickets come in, we can solve the problem. And I tell the team all the time, if we have no tickets, you have no job. Like, tickets are a good thing. And like I said earlier, people who are submitting tickets, it means that your product is good enough, or you've got a good enough product or a good enough customer base to actually care about your product and not just move on. Because just like the Apple Genius Bar line, if there's a line of people there, it's because people are using the product, and there's no such thing as a product that doesn't have technical support needs. And so I take that a step farther, though, and say, if somebody reaches out to me, every touch point is a positive thing. Like, even the mad ones, even the requests for a refund, even you fill in the blank, no matter what, all customer interactions, every time there's a new ticket, that's a positive thing. And it takes me 2 extra minutes of effort to think, how can I really wow this customer that they'll really like our product or our team, or turn them into a bigger fan. And oftentimes it's just something personal. You just say, I really like this organization. If it's an organization, in our case, we're doing a lot of nonprofits again. And so, like, if somebody has a fundraising organization for autistic children, it's like, I really love this organization. I'd love this cause to be able to do that, and give them that extra blurb, of why it's so special for you as a support technician to be able to help them as a organization. That's just awesome. Now, don't fake it. Don't be excited about organizations that you're not excited about. Let's skip being fake. But also, when you can, those little extra things make each touch point another opportunity to make a happy customer. So that's a question you didn't ask me, but I answered it anyways.
Good. Wonderful. I love it. The other thing I would even add to that, as far like kind of going back to the documentation bit, is I don't think you're ever going to be able to anticipate every need for documentation, right? Like, we've gotten tickets, I remember, that was just like, how did you do this? Like, how did you break this in this very specific way. We never could have written something that would have, like when I think it was like somebody put the short code for the form inside of the form, and then the whole site just
formception.
I will always remember that. It was so insane, and we spent so long looking for that.
Yeah.
Never would have been able to have had a piece of documentation that could have answered that, you know?
Right.
Or like the woman I'll always remember who, it was like 3 days of me back and forth in tickets with her, and it was because she had disabled the plugin. And neither one of us noticed. So she couldn't find her donation. She couldn't find her forms. It was because recurring donations had been disabled, the add-on. So yeah,
yes.
You can't rely on the documentation too much because people are very creative and they will break things in ways.
And there's another, that reminds me, there's another point about documentations and kind of the interplay between documentation and support. And it's that documentation, I've told the story before, like every podcast I've ever been on, but I'm going to tell it to you now too. There's a book by Chip and Dan Heath called Made to Stick. And in that book, they tell the story of Elizabeth Newton, who was I want to say like sociologist. She was working on her PhD at Stanford. And so she did a test where she split people into 2 groups. On one side was tappers and the other side was listeners. The tappers were given a slip of paper with a popular song name on it. Something like Jingle Bells or Happy Birthday to You. Something that everyone in the listener group would know the song. And then they were told to tap the melody of the song on the table. And so don't hum it, don't whistle it, just tap it. So for Jingle Bells, it would be, right? And so, but before they were asked to answer or asked to do it, they'd already seen the song title. They'd already seen the people sitting across the table. And the researchers asked them, what % of people do you think are going to get the question right or get the song right? And again, they're looking at the paper. They're looking at the people. They're pretty smart. It looks pretty easy. They guessed 48%.
Okay.
Or 50%, something like that. I think it was 50%. What actually happened was 2% of the people got it right, or they got it right 2% of the time. And so the people tapping overestimated their ability to communicate the title of the song by 48%. So what's going on there was later termed the curse of knowledge. Once you know the name of the song, you can't remember what it was like to not know the name of the song. And so our documentation is us tapping on the table, right? I don't remember what it was like to install a plugin for the first time. I can't remember that. I've done that too many times. I also can't remember much of the stuff, what it was like before I knew much of the stuff I know about Stripe and GiveWP and PayPal and all of these add-ons and recurring donations and all this stuff. And I'm the one who wrote the documentation. I'm one of the ones, but for the sake of this argument, I'm the one who wrote the documentation. So that's me tapping on the table. What I need is listeners to help me point out that 48% overestimate in my ability to tap on the table, because there's going to be blind spots in my documentation. And so when I get a support ticket that says, I read your docs and I don't know how to do this, I need to use their eyes to go look at my docs and be like, you know what? It doesn't say that there in my docs. It does not ever say that you should connect the payment gateway in this specific way. Like, and I need to do that. And so we've got a system in place now for documentation where we're working on using that actual feedback from the user as a catalyst to improve our docs. And so documentation is a never-ending, ongoing, will never stop process as long as your product is still being developed. And so we got to learn to answer correctly and to not only validate the person on the other end of the ticket that is confused by our documentation, but really value their input into our documentation process, because they're the best ones to do it. That's one of my favorite parts about training a new support technician is I tell them on that first week, I'm like, you can read our docs with fresh eyes. Like when you're reading our docs, you're going to see 7,000 things that are wrong that I just can't see. I can't see that they're wrong. And we just started training, or finished up training a new technician this past week. And he's already given me like 10 things that I can fix in the docs. And I love it because it's, you can't, once you learn it, you can't unlearn it. You can't remember what it was like to not know it. So that's one of the things of how documentation fits together with support.
Awesome. All right, we have time for one more question. This one actually just came in through the chat on YouTube. And the question is, when submitting a ticket, so not answering, but when submitting a ticket, what can those who are seeking support do better in order to get the best and most productive responses out of support?
Well, that's a great question. I gave a whole WordCamp talk on this one, and it's called How to Get Better Support. So go listen to that is my my first recommendation. But in there,
WordPress.tv.
Yep, WordPress.tv. You can search for my name, Ben Meredith. And there's I gave kind of two sides of the same coin talk. One talk was at WordCamp US this past time. I gave a talk on how to be a better support technician. So the answer to not the question that they asked. But the previous one is how to get better support. And it walks you through, I tell that story of the tapping and listening in there too, because I think the key to getting better support is to understand WordPress, especially in WordPress. It's just different. The way WordPress is structured, WordPress, the software is structured, it removes the gatekeepers, right? The motto is democratizing publishing, right? So there's no longer the editor of the New York Times deciding who gets to publish. There's no longer the gatekeepers of who gets to publish words onto the internet. And so that dream of democratizing publishing and open sourcing publishing comes with a cost. And there actually is a gatekeeper now, and it's you. You, the website owner, are the authority now. And so there is no person, when you're submitting a support ticket to a plugin or a theme or your host or whoever, there's nobody that can take full responsibility for your website, right? Because it's WordPress. It's not their website. When somebody comes to me at GiveWP and says, we're having a problem with our donations, I can't just open up their website's back end and look at the other plugins they've got installed and, clear the cache on their plugin and do all of the things that I would do if it were my website. And so the problem that a lot of people get when it comes to getting good support is understanding their audience. There's no such thing as a perfect support ticket, because there's no such thing as the perfect audience for a support ticket. And so when I submit a support ticket, I've got to give them, the people on the other end of the ticket, enough information to be able to resolve the problem. And so that's why our support form asks a bunch of questions, and it gives you a spot to put in your system info and all this stuff. And that's all an effort to get enough information to answer it the first time, right? And so the best thing that people can do with regard to WordPress support is over explain. Take a video of you getting the bug that you're getting and say, I clicked here and it's not doing it. Because just like with the tapping and listening helps me to see holes in my documentation, man, me watching you use my plugin fills a whole lot of holes in me understanding what you're talking about. Because, oh, you are using that button in a completely different way than we anticipated anyone ever using that button. And that's why you're having this problem. Like you said earlier, the people putting a short code within the form, short code within a short code within a short code. It's like, never would have predicted that. And man, that was an easy solution once we figured it out. If we had gotten a ticket that showed them like what they had done, that would have been a quick answer. It didn't end up being quick. Now I know the telltale signs. When I see that coming, I can spot it. But then it was like, man, I don't know. I've stripped this thing down to nothing. It's just give and the 2020 theme, and it's still doing it. Well, it's because the form itself had a form within it. And did not like. So yeah, I just think the more information you can give the support technician, the better. The more context for that information, it is super helpful. If somebody says to me, I tried this code snippet on your website, on your snippet library, and it didn't work, please fix. Not a great ticket. If they said, I put that PHP code from your snippet into my post editor and I clicked publish and nothing happened, please fix. Now I can fix that problem because you gave me enough information. Some of our listeners already heard it. PHP doesn't go in the post editor. There's your problem. Here's how you do PHP. And that's a much quicker answer than I tried this code snippet and it didn't work. It's broken. Please fix. But yeah, that's a little snippet of my WordCamp talk that you should go listen to. I think it's actually on there twice. So listen to the most recent one because I practiced it more. I think you're muted.
Yeah, I muted myself earlier. For anyone watching the replay of this, I will go find that how to get good support talk, and I'll put it in the description so you can go ahead and watch that.
Sweet.
I'll also put the link to the GiveWP support guide in the description because it is an awesome read. And that's it for questions for today. We're right at the end of our time, which is perfect. So we are going to cap you off there. Ben, thank you so much. Where can people find you or get in touch with you or wish you a happy birthday if they felt like it?
If they feel like it, they can do all of the above at BenUNC on Twitter. That's where that's my most social media. I spend most of the time conversing there, and especially about this topic. Yeah, BenUNC, and then obviously GiveWP.com is our plugin. You should purchase all of the bundles or all of the plans that you can there because it's amazing, and I really do believe in our team. So yeah, that's the spot.
Very nice. Awesome. All right. So before we completely close out, it's time to pick our random giveaway winner. This week's winner chosen by random is Dave. I don't have Dave's last name, but your name's Dave. So congratulations. I will go ahead and email you at the email address that you provided so that you can grab your prize. And all right, we will see you next week, everyone. Make sure you go to wpbuffs.com/WP-AMA-series. Sign up there, get early access to our next speaker. We announce the speakers early to people who have signed up so they can get their questions in first. And if you want to find out more about us, WP Buffs, go to wpbuffs.com or find us on social media, WP Buffs, basically everywhere. And that's all, folks. Have a good one.
Bye.